The dream that was JFK. Back in the 1960s, John F. Kennedy was larger than life, athletic, tanned, golden, charismatic. Kennedy wasn't a politician. He was a statesman. America isn't like the UK. We never had a royal family. But that's what we had with JFK and his elegant wife, Jackie, royalty. And we miss that. Americans miss that. It wasn't just the Kennedys' Hollywood-like style, their grace, their confidence. It was something else, something that's missing today. I sat down recently with Newton Minow, the former chairman of the FCC, to get his thoughts on his friend JFK's great legacy. What you're going to hear might surprise you in a good way. Roll the tape. Thank you very much for taking the time to sit down with us.
Glad to be here, Bill.
Absolutely. It's a real honor. Mr. Minow, you've been around for a long time, and you have seen it all. In 1961, President Kennedy tapped you to be the chairman of the FCC. What was that experience like?
Things were happening very quickly. I'm very proud of the communication satellite effort because you got to go back to the context of the time. The Cold War was at its height with the Soviet Union. The Russians had sent a man into space. We were trying to catch up, and we succeeded in early May of 1961 of sending the first man into space, Commander Alan Shepard. That was the tenor of the times. I miss those times because politics was fun then. Both parties had a sense of, if not cooperation, at least working with each other. It was not this nasty, terrible dysfunction that we have today.
What was it like being part of the Kennedy administration at the time?
Well, I knew him before. It's a different thing when you know the president before he's the president. We were of the same generation, and we did have a good, friendly relationship. President Kennedy once described himself, I think very accurately, as an idealist without illusions. An idealist without illusions. And that's what the president was.
He must have had a lot of confidence in you to appoint you chairman of the FCC.
Well, he knew I was deeply interested in television, and he knew I wanted to do what we could to improve it.
Everyone refers to the Kennedy administration as Camelot in idealized terms. Do you remember it that way?
I never identified it with Camelot or as such, but it was a period of a lot of fun, of a lot of excitement. The United States was growing, leading the world. But I remember it as being a very optimistic, exciting, youthful time.
How did the two of you become friends?
We became friends really through his sister Eunice, who lived here in Chicago, was married to Sergeant Shriver, and through his brother Bob, because Bob and I were both part of the Adlai Stevenson campaign staff in 1956, when Adlai ran for president against President Eisenhower. So we really knew Bob and Eunice before we got to know Jack very well.
Do you have a memory of a particular time with JFK that stands out even today?
Well, what I remember the most is the Cuban Missile Crisis, when we were on the brink of being attacked with nuclear missiles from Cuba, brought there by the Russians, when we could all have gone up in a nuclear war, and how well and how masterfully President Kennedy handled that to avoid war. Well, the military was advising the president to drop a bomb on Cuba, and they kept pushing him. But the president wisely looked for a diplomatic alternative, searched for it, and through correspondence and exchange of messages with Mr. Khrushchev, we were able to solve the problem peacefully.
People often say that they remember exactly where they were when they heard the news about JFK's assassination. Do you remember that day and how it affected you?
Yes, and I think I've never really gotten over it. I had left the government and come home. I had promised the president that I would serve 2 years, and I did that and more. And was home. I had a job with the Encyclopedia Britannica. It was lunchtime. I was having lunch in the Britannica cafeteria when my assistant came out. She said, your wife called. It's an emergency. I called my wife, and she told me President Kennedy had been shot. And I rushed home. We went to the funeral, and 50 years later, we've never really gotten over it. What would have happened if the president had not been killed, and how differently the world and our country and our situation would be today.
That was a defining moment in American history. Some people have said that America lost its innocence that day. Do you agree?
I do agree. I remember there was a very eloquent journalist named Mary McGrory who was talking to Pat Moynihan, who later became senator from New York. And Mary said to Pat, we'll never smile again. And Pat Moynihan said, oh, we'll smile again, Mary, but we'll never be young again. And I think that also meant we'll never be innocent again. Our country grew up. Television grew up that weekend. Television did a absolutely magnificent job of canceling all its programs, all its commercials, everything, for 4 days to bring the country all the news as it happened. And I think television united the country and helped us accept finally what had happened.
I read another interview of yours where you talked about JFK's legacy, and you said JFK proved that politics can be honorable. Do you think politicians today are honorable by JFK's standards?
We've got a different kind of politician today. I believe in both parties. It's not just one party. Both parties who are incapable of compromise, of incapable of putting aside the idea it's got to be my way or the highway. And it's unfortunate that today's politics does not have that same sense of let's do what we can do for the country, not the other way around.
If you had an opportunity to speak to the nation today, what would your message be?
I'd say we should go back to the wonderful speech President Obama gave at the Democratic Convention in 2004, where he said, no more blue states, no more red states. It's one nation. We're all in this together. I'd go back to that spirit if we could manage to do it.
Mr. Minow, thank you for taking the time with us
Thank
today.
you, Bill. It's a pleasure to be with you.